Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chummy. Eric Chummy. Politely Pushy. I'm Eric Chummy, and this is Politely Pushy. Welcome to Politely Pushy, folks. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chummy. I think today is the most number of guests we've ever had on the show. We've got 5 other people here with me. We got all the boxes going here, the hex box or whatever we call this today. And our guest of honor is Mike Nielsen from RealSense that just got spun out from Intel. Bospar was the company that helped them tell the world that we are now a new company. We are no longer part of Intel. We've got different funding. We've got a whole new management team, and we're off to the races here. And we've got 4 of my Bospar colleagues that help them get those training wheels off and get going and launching. So first, I'll just bring Mike right in here. What was that like? What is it like to leave the mothership of Intel and go off onto your own? And it's like you're jumping off a cliff here, and you've got people like us hopefully helping you do that.
It was a wild ride. I was joking yesterday, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was joking with somebody actually on this team that the last 6 months were just absolute frenzy. And now that I'm only doing like 1 or 2 day jobs, it actually feels like time slowed down to a glacial pace. So it's a little bit weird right now in that transitional period where we're like, what are we supposed to be doing? Because we're not doing 15 different things a day. For number one, you guys were instrumental. It's not just like we hired a media agency. You guys were absolutely instrumental in doing this. But it was like being fired from a cannon because we had to build everything from scratch. What our situation, just for some background, back when we were at Intel, we didn't really have, because Intel's a very big company with a lot of big priorities and a whole marketing group, we didn't have latitude to do the kind of things that we needed to as a company anyway, as a small company. So we basically had to build the infrastructure while we were trying to get it out the door. And then we had to launch the thing through the cannon and then be on the receiving end to make sure we caught everything when bits were falling out of the sky. So the ride was bananas, but you guys crushed it. So I mean, it was super easy. In a lot of ways, it was absolutely painless. And actually, a bit of an admission, I think some of you would already probably laugh and or know this is coming, but I'm a little paranoid. So in the absence of having like absolute control over what was going on, I just had to have trust and faith, and it worked because, like I said, you guys crushed it. So thanks.
And I think you having that trust and faith in us made a really big difference because you took our counsel. You didn't argue with us. You trusted us, and that made the partnership really work.
Agreed. And it was a pleasure to work with you and your team. And I think from the get-go, we were just strategic in how we pulled this off and put it together. We were very quiet on the PR side. We were much louder on social and content and really figuring out and navigating who our subject matter experts are, who we're going to put forth for technology interviews, for marketing, for business. And so we really took time to ensure that we have one moment in time to get our launch right. And this is it. So we're not going to rush through it. We strategized.
Yep.
What was the big challenge though? Because we knew a few months ago, hey, Intel's going to do this. We just don't know exactly when and how. Intel's going to send you guys off. So what was the challenge? Was it to publicize things? Was it to keep certain things secret because half the information's already kind of out there? Maybe there's rumors. What were you most afraid of?
I mean, we could spend the next 6 hours going through my list of fears on that launch, but the biggest ones, I think you already said it, it was the intersection of timing, right? So we had a combination of the early kind of pre-announce that we did back in January where we let the market know, hey, we're coming out, blah, blah, blah. Then we had the full 6-month run up to get everything prepped and out the door. And as we got down to the wire, we started off every prep call for every Wednesday with is that still the date, guys? Because it last said you weren't sure about the date. And we're like 100% still the date until it wasn't. And that way, and I knew you saw it coming. So I don't think I surprised anyone by surprising people, but we knew it was going to probably wiggle. And when it did, that was the biggest stress point because number one, we wanted to hit as hard as we could because we had to combat some FUD that had been out there for the better part of 4 years. People misinterpreted and miscommunicated that RealSense was going away. And that made it, frankly, a gigantic pain in the words I'm not supposed to use in the podcast, that we're dead. And we had to combat that. We simultaneously had to make sure that we hit the deadlines that we needed to make sure we satisfied what Intel needed. So we had those wiggle dates. And then at the same time, our employees were super stoked. Like everybody was excited, and there was literally zero chance I was keeping people quiet over a weekend.
Yeah.
So we had that conversation like, okay, guys, Friday's the day. Are we sure about this? And you guys gave us the counsel, like, look, that Friday, we're going to make Friday work. And I'm still kind of stunned by the results, not just because it was a Friday, but just the results overall. But it was all the things lining up. Intel had to come in. We had to nail it. Employees had to like behave themselves and like maintain their excitement at least for like 5 more hours. So all that stuff. And then we're launching the website. You guys launched the socials. We launched you did a bunch of the prep work with the media. A bunch of the stories hit. I was simultaneously trying to launch stuff in China. So all those kind of came together at the right time. And that was, it was a hairy couple of days.
Skylar, what was the social pressure when you got FUD that you're fighting off from a few years ago? Like, is this company even still around? What do you mean they're spinning off? I thought they disappeared. And I bet a lot of social is just filled with just misinformation that you're trying to battle.
We actually didn't see that much conversation happening on social. It was more of the prep to get to where we needed to be. So coordinating across like several time zones in order to make sure that everyone could post at the right time and make sure it was all good. And then figuring out where we wanted to be, how we wanted to be there. We looked at every single channel that we could possibly be on and decided on LinkedIn was our main one. We also had YouTube and Discord and Reddit and all these other things. So making sure we had all of our ducks in a row was most important. And then day of, it was pretty seamless, I would say, getting everything up.
Yep. You guys made it painless. It was funny because I was looking back now to that last compression period. And we had, you were turning on the social channels. We were turning on the CEO channels. All the executive team was modifying bios. The LinkedIn page didn't exist. The YouTube page had to be rebranded. We're doing what we're doing with Twitter and Blue Sky and everything else. And everything, I don't know. I actually have a question. How much more complicated was this lift out than a typical launch that you guys would manage?
From a social perspective, it was pretty straightforward in terms of we know what we need to do. It was just the scale of it because This was a bigger deal. You were spinning out of Intel. So you had nothing. You had Intel RealSense channels, but not RealSense channels, especially with LinkedIn. There was nothing. So
did they let you port those over, or they were like, sorry, buzz off, start from zero, start your own?
No, we were able to get ownership of RealSense, and we just had to adjust all of the names and branding and everything, which we had pre-approved bios, cover photos, profile, everything was approved and ready to go. It was just a matter of switching it all over. But I think my favorite part of the launch was secretly launching the LinkedIn page the day before. And then seeing it just explode on the day was crazy.
And I think too, Mike, you guys were spinning out from a legacy brand. So it was also just more so reinforcing your credibility in that AI and robotics space. And so that's unique to some of the launches that we've supported here in the past. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Mark and I've been working together for a long time. You guys know Marky Hero. So Mark, in the past, we've set some aggressive goals and then we crush them. And he'd be like, he'd call me a sandbagger. So it's just become a running joke now that I sandbag all the results. So Skylar, what was our target? 1,500 in 6 months?
Yes, our goal was 1,500. I actually checked this morning. We're at 2,000. So we cleared 2,000 this morning. Out of the water in the first week. Our 90-day KPI was 500. We were at 700 by the end of the day on the first day. So we lowballed ourselves, to put it nicely.
And I didn't think you guys were sandbagging either. That's the funny thing. It just, I'm getting some crap for it internally because it's funny now. But yeah, you hit the 6-month KPI in 6 days.
Yeah.
Nick, how did you figure out, who are the outlets we want to get after? Who do we want to target? Who do we want to, maybe leave behind on this? Because obviously you want to divvy out that news to the right people at the right time.
So it's actually interesting because in December, I actually worked with a robotics company that we helped with their launch and their funding. And this is where I give Mike credit because we kind of told them, like, listen, we need like a 3-week runway to get going, because the way the media has been, funding stories in less than 2 weeks have been a little difficult to secure. So I had worked with a few different reporters back in December who were like, this is interesting, but it's not totally what we can do right now. It's around Christmas time, the holidays, not enough of a long runway. So I was able to actually go back to, my contacts at TechCrunch, Bloomberg, CNBC, and be like, and start like soft sounding a little bit. And I was like, hey, like, this is news that's going to be coming soon. Would you be interested? And luckily, Mike was able to get us quick approval on the press release Joanna drafted. So we were able to do that outreach early. And honestly, come outreach time, it was pretty easy. I mean, you have humanoid robotics, which is already so interesting, but then you also have the spinning off of Intel part of it. So, I mean, our first little bit of outreach, it was, we had TechCrunch almost right away. Becca, she's a great reporter there. But then, I kind of started playing with our subject lines. I kind of played with the news a little bit. Like, hey, like humanoid robotics are coming, old Intel companies ready to launch. And that's where, the interest really flew in. I remember, up until that Friday, which, we always try to avoid Fridays, but luckily it worked out for us. Like Thursday night, I was texting Mike, hey, Mike, you have pictures? Hey, Mike, TechCrunch wants to go live at 6 a.m. I need a photo. So, I think it was 11 o'clock.
Why was there no photo ready before that? It seems like we should have had that ready to go before Thursday night, right?
So we had photos, but then they wanted like very specific technology photos. Yeah. That's where TechCrunch came in. And I remember like I'm trying to navigate like 3 different top tier reporters all at once. Like, what time can we go live? I'm like, well, luckily for you, 6 a.m. is when the release goes live. So anytime after 6 a.m., it's all you. And that's where Skylar slacked me at 6:05. I was like, oh, here's CNBC, TechCrunch, and Reuters.
Sending in the links in the channel like right away. I was like, well, I'm here.
How little sleep were you guys getting that night?
I pride myself on getting nice sleep. I still got about 6 hours. I was up by, I think I was up by like 6-ish, because Skylar was like surprised I was awake. And I'm like, hey, I got a job to do here too.
I'm surprised you the West Coast-ish. I thought you'd say, no, I was up at 4. I was ready to go. You can't tell Mike you were up after.
No, well, the West Coast teams were up at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were up early.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, luckily for me, it's easy to just wake up and get going. But I want to be ready for when the press release went live itself too, just to share that over. So it was very, very easy for me to just, log it. I feel like that anticipation the night before, like, kind of keeps you up and you're like thinking about it a little bit. So I was ready to go come 6.
Like the first day of school.
Ready. And I think it's worth mentioning too, right? The July 11th was a Friday. The week before was July 4th. Everyone was off. There were many folks who took that next week, the week that we were pitching in advanced outreach, they were off. So, journalists, newsrooms were smaller, limited capacity, and the news was so good and our relationships that it didn't stop the coverage. It didn't impact lack of coverage.
Yeah, I mean, there was some magic involved here. I don't know what dark arts you guys practice in your spare time, but I mean, that we know that we're in a cool space and we're pretty excited about what we do, right? But that's not enough. There's some more magic that has to go into it. And whatever you did, again, I don't know how that works, but I'm not even going to question it because I don't want to doom anything in the future. But it was clearly your relationships. You know how to manage the media, but on both social and on traditional channels, right? So people showed up. I mean, you guys obviously showed up, but everybody else showed up and was excited about the story. And I think we had cool news to tell. But I'd love to take full credit. Like, oh, our news was amazing. It's like, no, it was interesting, but there was the execution of that at that point in time with what else is going on in the market it was flawless. So
I think we can give some credit to Erin there as well. She definitely had her motivation tactics. Yeah. She was like, keep going, let's get everything. Let's secure as much media as we possibly can.
She was being politely pushy.
There you go.
And there is something to say about Nadav and your willingness to just jump on these calls. I mean, it was the week before, like the week of, and a lot of our reporter friends were like, hey, I can do this time. And Nadav was willing, from time zones to hop on and have these calls. And he was very, very good in the interviews. I mean, every call he'd be like, I think the best part is that my team is awesome, and these end up being kind of profile pieces. So highlighting the team, highlighting the technology, it's great. It was great how well spoken he was. It really made our lives easy as well.
Yeah, people got really excited for it internally. I mean, we got everybody prepped. There's some folks obviously who hadn't done a lot of media work before, but and Nadav is one of them. He hadn't done a lot before, but he kind of crushed it. I thought it was great, and he seemed excited. He was a little bit hesitant in the beginning, but then he got into a rhythm and just it was fantastic. But we had a lot of discussions internally, like, guys, it's not that we only get one shot to go talk to the market, but this is a big shot that we're taking. Yeah. So let's all show up here but he was he was traveling international, so he's doing whatever the 1 a.m. calls we set up for him.
Yeah, I mean it's good that Eric helped. Eric was the one who was doing a lot of that media training with us, so he was able to jump in on a lot of these executives and really push them to be their best.
Well, I'm curious for all these guys, right? You're all in a way getting a promotion, right? When you go from a giant company to a small company, everyone who's now a C-suite person was not a C-suite person because you were just part of a giant corporation. So what was that change like for you, Mike, to make sure people understood, hey, you're going to go from kind of somewhere in the middle of management at giant Intel to no, you're the CXO, you're the C something O of this company. Yeah. All the media is on you. You think about a lot of these billion and trillion dollar companies, only one or two people talk to the media. So if you're a few levels down, forget it. And now you're that guy. So I can see why people have never had that experience before. They've never talked to the press. They've never had training. And now, boom, there's no graduation, no gradual change. It's just, boom, here you go.
You just go do it. Yeah. I think that the reality of that lack of buffer has now finally hit and has settled in, and the team's getting into a groove. I mean, people are starting to feel a lot more confident that look, we don't have to, not only do we not have to deal with the burden of being in a large company, which strips away, we call it the tax, and it's a corporate tax. You spend half or 2/3 of your time, 3/4 of your time dealing with things to make sure that you can operate in the big company. And people are, I think our team now is we're getting into a groove. A few of us have been both startup and big company land, so it's easy to navigate back and forth. But having that disappear and just knowing that, like you said, the training wheels are off. So just go. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me this morning, hey, can we do so and so? I'm like, well, why are you asking me that question? There is no can we. Of course we can. Is it a good idea? That's the question we need to ask, right?
And I guess, the big question is now that we're out there, right? What happens next? And, to sustain the momentum, the conversation, to keep RealSense top of mind, we are actively pitching approved case studies. Joanne had a big hand in that, drafting the case studies for us, getting them approved. And so now we are out there. We're aggressively out there, securing interviews. And yeah, we're not done. We're just getting started.
So I think there's something that you guys do that, again, it's kind of magical. It's you talk about it a lot, and then the way that you do it is it's super fluid and natural in terms of, I'll just say newsjacking broadly, but it's not exactly what I'm going for. It's just around kind of getting not just involved in, but owning the conversation and the discussions that we're having about what's coming out next and the points in time and how they map to the reality of the world, as opposed to, hey, look at our cool robotics technology. That is something that can amplify. I've worked with a lot of different groups. It's really hard to get that right. And you guys are pushing us hard to get into that mindset. I think a few of us have finally gotten there. I know I'm there now. I'm with you and I'm riding shotgun. But I think that, because it is politely pushy, you're pushing us and we're learning. And I think we're getting pretty good at keeping up.
It sounds like you're saying we're getting annoyed. It sounds like
no,
you're bothering us. That's what I'm hearing.
Especially Aaron, usually Nick. No. It's
usually
because
But Skylar and Joanne are fine. They're not bothering Mike. They're okay.
No,
yeah, exactly.
I bother Mike.
No, we bother him. I'm texting him all the time. Where's this? Where's that?
Have you approved
I
this
think
yet?
half my text messages are, so you guys okay if we do this? No, because it pushes us. But again, we've got to crack some mentalities that we've had for a long time. This is a market that we're in that is moving stupid fast. And we are in some ways we're leading because of the tech that we make. And sometimes we're just holding on for dear life because we're watching customers move at warp speed. And you guys are kind of helping us navigate that. And staying relevant in the conversation while we're also having active discussions about, hey, what should the humanoid market be? Like we had that conversation. Nadav and I were talking this morning. Like, what do we think the market needs to be in 5 years? And we're going to play a part of that, but we think we should actually try to lead it. And then you guys are taking us down and here's how it's going to intersect with reality. So it's really, you're providing, I think, a lot more guidance to our strategy than you even know at this point, just because of the nature of how we're having the conversations with and through you.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about like those trends, like, we just did some media outreach around like those delivery robots. I mean, you kind of want to relate this to the everyday person. So, I mean, people like ordering food for delivery. That's important. When we do our outreach for case studies that involve medical devices, that's something that everyone at some point, typically gets involved in. Our new outreach around, farming shortages, that's something that is important because that's something that, we can relate to across the whole country, globe, whatever. There's so many stories to tell there, and this is how we get, RealSense into that conversation.
That's also a big part of our social strategy that we were kind of hinting at when we originally put it together. Was we have Chris and we have all these different conversations happening on Discord, Reddit, all of these different places that while we're not outright owning those conversations, we're helping guide Chris with those conversations, and we're watching those conversations happen and pulling in the most talked about topics to see how we can translate that to social and how we can incorporate RealSense's voice into those already trending discussions.
And then for the case studies, a lot, we're focusing on the good that's coming out of using this technology. We've had these discussions where a lot of people are afraid of robots, right? They fear what's happening. But because we have so many use cases where we can show real good is happening.
Yeah.
And we're really emphasizing that as well.
And I think the great part is that robotics is just interesting. I mean, Mike, you were on that interview yesterday for what, an extra 15, 20 minutes, just talking?
Emily had to come back on after you had to bail to
yeah. I mean,
like, cutting it off, guys.
Even today, I was on that interview with Roy and Guy, and it was a 30-minute interview. It went over an hour.
Wow.
Same with the one that Chris did. Like, reporters, media, consumers, everyone is interested in this stuff because it's kind of what we all grew up watching. It's like, this is the future's here, and it's kind of easy to talk about that when you're so willing to talk about it as well.
It's cool because the way I'm pointing where you guys are on my screen, by the way, the way that Joanne writes and the way that Skylar and Nick communicate and the way we're getting guided by Aaron and by Emily and by everybody else. I don't know how deliberate you guys are in that, but you know that there's a pretty consistent through line, right? Like it clearly threads. I don't know if you're talking about it in advance or if you got some kind of weird mind meld going on, but the way that it all kind of bounces off of each other and it happens quickly. So it's not like, let's spend 6 weeks trying to figure out strategy. It's just, there's a really natural, this is what the customer is saying. This is where the market's at. Here's how we're going to communicate it. And that thread is super clean. That's hard to do. It's like not, most people can't tie that together that easily. It seems seamless from my perspective. Maybe it's totally normal for you guys. And you're like, Mike's an idiot, so ignore him. But for me, this is actually kind of magical. Because like I said, not many people can actually thread that through that quickly. Especially because you're not roboticists. You guys aren't as nerdy as we are, thankfully. But we're dealing with literally the bits and bytes of it every day, and to see it land that way is cool.
I think it's an extra credit to our team, though, because we actually just work so well together. I mean, a lot of our conversations that we're having aren't even necessarily about messaging or about our tactics. I mean, a lot of our conversations are Slack or me making fun of Skylar or Eric. I mean, I think the way it happened is that the way this team was put together, we all complement each other really well, and that helps too. I think we just all work well together. That's including you.
I agree.
Yeah.
What were some challenges where it didn't work out, where there was a disagreement, or maybe Mike and the team just sort of didn't see eye to eye on a particular tactic or strategy? I don't know if anyone's going to admit to anything like that.
Well, I would say in the beginning when we were talking about the press release, Mike was a little hesitant about releasing the funding amount.
Yeah.
And because he wasn't sure about the investors, and we made the point that we have to include the funding amount if we want to get coverage. And he came on board with that.
That was a dance up until like literally the 11th hour too. 'Cause we
5 a.m. on Friday.
I didn't know if one of the investors could be like, nope, can't mention our name. So I did the final check after the final check after the final check, and like that's it. We're gonna call it. Really wish we could have announced everybody at the same time, but it was that was a dicey few hours.
How much back end stuff, Mike, do you have to do internally on your side that you can't even tell us? Where it's like, hey, I need to work on something, and I'll give you an answer, but I can't tell you exactly what I'm doing or why or who, or is it, or do you not have those moments that lack transparency?
No, it's not really a lacking of transparency. I mean, there's two dimensions to that. One is there's no point exposing you to the sausage making process, because when we were inside, it was just a lot of goo that we had to deal with when we were still inside of Intel. But secondarily, when it's about alignment on strategy, that is, again, it wasn't lack of transparency. It was more that like I need to go talk to our team and make sure that we all agree that this is the North Star that we're going after. And let's have another conversation. And here's why we're picking these 4 case studies. And here's why it's critically important that we get the language right around who's going to invest in why and how. And just little word changes that are clearly, I mean, obvious because you guys do this all the time, but they have implications on our strategic intent. And that's the sort of stuff, the backroom stuff we got to go work out. But you guys are part of those conversations too.
Any debate or fighting conflict, let's say between content with Joanne, Skylar's social, then the normal kind of earned media? Was there priorities? Well, we want to do this, but if you guys do that, it messes up what we're trying to do.
I don't think we did have any conflicts at all. We were pretty much working in concert with each other.
I think the one thing I can mention is that we had a few reporters asking about valuation, and we weren't inclined to give that. So
you were, or you were not inclined?
We were not.
Okay.
Weren't ready to do that. So it was kind of go back to Nadav. He was able to handle that question very, very well. Like, I think both CNBC and Reuters asked him about valuation, and he's just like, well, that's something that we're not, ready to share. And it didn't hinder the stories at all, which really helped. He still did talk about the company, all the interesting things that are going on, which added a lot to the story that wasn't all about, the monetary aspect of it.
How much does the media outreach even matter for a company like RealSense, where you have your customers, you have, let's say, a niche industry, like people in that industry know what you guys do, right? People in the outside world, they might not necessarily be your customers, so maybe it doesn't matter. So how much did this even matter to tell the broader world, hey, here's what we've done, here's why it matters, versus like, okay, we can put this in a robotics trade, or I can email our 10 biggest customers and let it go?
There's 2 ways I'm going to answer this question. One's very backwards looking, one's very forwards looking. As recently as, what was it called? Automatica, the show in Munich that happened in June. As recently as that show, and that was just 2 weeks before separation, our sales team was coming back to me and saying, Mike, I'm getting asked constantly, hey, I didn't know you guys were still in business. And that was...
So this was like a month ago. It was like a month.
Yeah, it was like a month ago. Literally, it's back in like June 24th through 27th, yeah. Right? And this is literally that. I was being told perhaps it was hyperbole, but I trust the people that were telling me this. Half the conversations were, "Hey, we thought you guys were dead. It's really good to see you here. This is great." And that's like, well, this is not an ideal situation. So we had to crush that. Like that was sledgehammer to a watermelon territory. It had to go away, and it did. I think actually the best story was it Terrell? The CRN article that came out. So CRN is the one that, I mean, he didn't shiv us on purpose. He was given bad information, and he wrote a really good story about bad information. But then we corrected it with him, and he's like, look, he came out and owned it, and he put it on LinkedIn. It was he was really effusive in his support for us. But that one article alone was enough to help turn the conversation around. So we had to kill that. That was number 1. Number 2 is this is a very fast moving space. There are a bunch of companies that are doing a combination of AI vision types of technologies right now. And we're the market leader. So people trust us, but we have to stay that way. And it's more than just us being a trusted partner to the customers that we already work with. We've got to establish now the narrative for the industry going forward. And we think that's really, really important for us from a longevity perspective and for valuation as well.
being in the right bucket is so key. Like I talk to so many companies, if you can be associated with the right kind of competitors or industry set, other media see that, and then forevermore, you're part of that same bucket. So you do want to get defined, like you said, with the right kind of other firms in the industry. You want to be in that sentence with them, and you don't want to be in a sentence with the wrong companies that maybe are too down market or too small. You always want to be with those bigger guys, the better guys. It's like, oh, okay, they're on the same footing as they are.
Yeah, being mentioned alongside companies that have multi-$100 billion valuations in the same sentence as equals was just wild.
Yeah. Everyone's going to get one shot to ask Mike a question they didn't get to ask him over these last couple of months.
I can't think of that was my question.
That was your one. You shot your shot. That was it.
I'll think of one.
Who's ready? Who's next? It's the only thing keeping you to getting out of this interview.
If there's one thing from the launch or after that you would love to see on the social pages, what would it be? And what was your favorite part from social on the launch? I have mine.
Two questions.
Mine's too, yeah. But I have mine.
My favorite from in terms of content that showed up in socials. Sorry guys, there's a dog out there that looks like a bear. I swear to God, someone's walking a black bear down my street.
Maybe it is a bear.
Yeah, I was just gonna say maybe.
Sorry, that was total diversion. Hopefully it's not a bear. Hopefully for those people, it's not a bear. The fact I'm blown away by the results. That was actually super exciting. Just seeing the immediate response on social, on LinkedIn especially. That was my favorite part of it. There was no like specific messaging component that was my favorite, but the fact that we hit those numbers so quickly was great. What I want to see going forward, I mean, it's a little harder to say, but I think as we start getting more organically bolted onto other people's conversations, especially with the ones that we're more targeting, people like NVIDIA and others, that's going to be a big push for us as well. While we're also doing the regular run of business stuff.
Yeah.
What was yours?
Yeah, mine was getting Nadav's post into LinkedIn Today Top News. I think that was the perfect intersection between what PR is doing, what content we're doing, just seeing that all kind of come together because it's kind of like earned coverage, also social media. And I think the way his channel just blew up was an unexpected bonus to everything and kind of just like the cherry on top of it all.
That's worth saying some more about. What did his follower count go to?
It's in the 4,000s now, but it was an increase from 1,100 area to 4,400 something. So,
and the post impressions was over 250,000 within a day. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question about a one. From our results, our coverage, have you received or anyone at the company received like a increase in calls or increased website traffic or just potential customers?
I'm laughing because I had to do the one thing that I really hate having to do, which is respond to other people's emails. Nadav's called me from travel. He's like, Mike, I can't keep up. Can you please just go into my LinkedIn account and start responding to people that are coming in?
And you pretend to be him and respond?
Pretend to be him and respond, yeah.
I was like, Mike, there's a lot of engagements on this post and I don't know what to do.
So we went in, Mark and I will not say perhaps there may have been a cocktail involved, but we just went through the entire hundreds. Because it's funny, we had to go back in history. Okay, let's start at the beginning and work our way forward. So we scrolled and got back to July 11th. And then the next message after that was the 7th and then June 30th and June 14th. But then it was several hundred from July 11th up to the date that we're trying to get to. And it was a big chunk in the beginning. But we went through that. It was a lot of what you expect, right? Hey, congratulations. There's a few of those, just no strings attached. Congratulations. And most of those we just leave for him because that's people that he knows, right? But then there was a lot of people looking for roles, want to be part of the journey. Awesome, great. We'll have you talk to our HR folks. And there were a bunch of deals. That's awesome. Hey, this is great. We've got this robotics startup. We're looking at doing this industry. We had probably 15 of those. We had major corporates come in as well. wanting to talk about partnerships and possible investment opportunities. So
I'm excited.
I didn't expect that at all, like at all. I mean, I got bombarded with like, "Hey, I have marketing services." I'm like, "Of course you do." But we also, Mark, myself, Fred, and Guy, and Adab, all five of us collectively had gotten a bunch of inbounds, especially from the big corporates and the investors that we didn't expect to see. So that was real. That's a real tangible lead impact that I wouldn't have planned for.
I think that's a testament to the coverage. So like my main roles at Bospar, I mean, especially on RealSense, is I do a lot of the media relations. And coming into this, I never secured my client Reuters. I had never secured my client, Barron's. So seeing that, and that makes me feel great. Like this coverage really meant something. Yep. So I have another question for you, Mike. So I know I worked like 14 hours that Friday. It's like 6 to 8 or something like that.
Mike's been working 16 hours every day for 3 years.
Yeah.
So
wins for you, Nick.
That's a good. I would listen.
You already pointed out that you got 6 hours of sleep that night, so the empathy level is low. So.
No, I get it. I just know that
he actually not to sleep that night. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I personally went and had a cocktail myself. How did you unwind and celebrate after that Friday night into the weekend?
I was in a daze, man. I mean, we walked out of Friday like, I can't believe what I just experienced, what we just saw, because the results were pouring in, and Curtis, bless him for doing this. He's like, let's not overset expectations.
Right.
We're launching on Friday. We had that okay, Dad's talking, so let's let it come out. Like, all right. So now we're sandbagging, and then Friday was nuts. I went and had, what did we do? I think I was just like a blank stare, basically, with I wouldn't say trauma, but just from the experience. My wife and my son and I, my daughter was off doing something else, but my wife and my son and I went out and just grabbed dinner and got a beer and just kind of stared at the fire pit, because it was just like, I need a break.
Yeah, I know Skylar and I
on Friday nights. Totally not cooking Friday night.
I know Skylar and I had texted a picture, Bulldog holding a drink. We're like, oh, we made it.
Cheers.
Joanne, the last question, yours.
Okay, so looking ahead in terms of messaging, what should content be focusing on?
We have got to really make the public understand the net benefit of what robotics is going to do. It's not this just weird dystopian vision that people were envisioning. And I think I told you guys this before. If you'd asked me 2 years ago about humanoid robots, I would have laughed. That's some musk fever dream nonsense. It's not happening. And then reality smacked me, because I started to see where they were being applied. And then not just where they were being applied like a robot moving slowly, but carrying a heavy box or something sharp or dangerous, or spraying chemicals. And it's kind of stuff you'd understand. What really grabbed me was when we started to notice that they were applying perception in a way that they were much quicker and more dexterous than they had been previously. And we were watching in real time over 6 months the acceleration of the capability. And it was crazy. It went from these manipulator arms that would rotate and twist and go slowly out and grab a thing and slowly back, to this really human fluid motion, to then even faster than human fluid motion. And the pace of that change was just bonkers in a year, 6 months to a year. So I think having people understand the utility of this, and it's not about taking jobs away. And there's always that tussle between the tech and what's going to happen to legacy businesses, right? But what this stuff can actually do for people, that's where we got to take it next.
This has been great. Thank you, everybody, for spending the time. Mike, thank you so much for sharing some of your insights, and looking forward, now that that's all done, to see what happens here going forward in terms of, okay, the business is on good footing. Now we actually start to grow and create some different stories in the marketplace. So thank you again, everybody, for the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.